Welcome back to another episode of the North Star Takes podcast. I'm Bailey Policki. He's Jacob Liberta. We're a Minnesota sports podcast, so if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. And if you're a Vikings fan, give this video a like, as we've kind of known it all along, but it's officially official now. Kevin O'Connell is going to be the next head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, as he was officially named head coach today. And press conference will be soon to follow, I'm sure, within the coming days here. But, I mean, obviously super exciting stuff as he just won the Super Bowl with the Los Angeles Rams, being their offensive coordinator. Obviously, he had his hands on, McVay calls the plays, but O'Connell kind of had his hands in everything that offense did. Stafford coming up with the clutch drive at the end of the Super Bowl. Obviously, him and Cooper Kupp were just fantastic down the stretch, and then especially on that final drive. So, we kind of already knew this wasn't going to be the case for this team. The coaching staff has been kind of getting leaked as well, filling out here. But what are your thoughts now that it's official and now that we can kind of move forward with the rest of the offseason?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm glad that we can finally, like you said, move forward, get along with the rest of this to-do list the Vikings have in front of them here for the rest of the offseason, because we basically have been waiting the last week and a half for O'Connell to get hired, and now, or officially, I should say, and now we finally put the pen to paper, and he can start outwardly and publicly commenting and really doing things for the betterment of this team and his vision for the future that everybody was raving about in the interview process. So I'm excited to see what that looks like, and I think O'Connell, coming from a Super Bowl champ, you got to be excited. It's not too often your next head coach is a Super Bowl champ in the season right before that. So I think that's great. He's also going to be the second youngest head coach in the league next year, only behind the guy he was just working for with McVay in LA. So that's another, in my opinion, a step in a forward-thinking direction for this franchise, and in terms of getting younger, maybe getting some fresh perspectives, fresh ideas, and in terms of what we want this team to look like for not only 2022, but also beyond, and maybe a more like 2023 and beyond focus as far as trying to seriously compete for championships, depending how we structure things and how we go about things in this next month, really.
Yeah, and you and I have talked all about how we could possibly attack this offseason, specifically at the quarterback position. We just released a video about Kirk Cousins. What should the team do with him? But really, I'm going to be interested to hear what O'Connell has to say about Kirk Cousins. During this opening press conference, I'm sure someone like Chris Thomason is going to ask him, what are your thoughts on Kirk Cousins? Do you think you can win with him? Questions like that. And I'll be curious if he gets up and stands on the table for Kirk Cousins, or if he just kind of, moves around the question like, oh, Kirk's a good quarterback and we really like what we have in Kirk, but, doesn't really answer like, we have full trust in Kirk Cousins and he is going to be our guy. I mean, there's a bunch of different ways he could answer that kind of question. And I'm guessing him and Adolfo Mensa will probably both be at the press conference, so they'll probably both get questions, I would imagine. And maybe they'd be able to elaborate a little bit more on like the direction this team's going to go, starting this offseason, what their thoughts are for moving forward, where to start really. So, I mean, those are kind of things I'm looking forward to just in the opening presser, because, we're still a few weeks out from any moves being made. We're about a month out from free agency. We're 3 weeks out roughly from the combine. So I guess, is there anything you're really looking forward to hearing from him when he makes his introductory press conference here?
Really, I just want to hear some excitement, some good energy. I don't know. I think it would take a lot to botch this opening press conference. I think it'd have to be really shaky for me to feel uneasy about it. I think he could probably say almost anything, and I would probably be pretty excited about it, or at least find a way to put a positive spin on it. But I think the one line I would draw is if he comes on the press conference and makes me feel too uneasy about his plans for Kirk Cousins and that extending beyond the next month and not involving a trade of some sort. So I think that would make me feel a little hesitant to really embrace him. But other than that, I think I'll be pretty excited to hear whatever he has to say, whatever that might be. I just want to hear that maybe part of his vision for the franchise, that again, everybody was talking about the interview process, that he'd interviewed well and he had a great plan. I kind of want to hear a little bit about this, even if it's in really high level terms as far as being pretty broad, because obviously you don't want to throw out too many details on a press conference and maybe show your cards, so to speak. But I'm just excited to hear what he has to say, what he's really going to emphasize. I know there's going to be at least a theme or two, I'm sure, that will get across to us. So I want to know what that is. I know Zimmer's approach is really being a hard guy, hard-nosed football guy, but now
Yeah.
O'Connell's kind of coming from a different tree, and we're going to see what that might entail for us.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be kind of refreshing for me too. I think when I'm watching this press conference is going to be like it's just going to be a breath of fresh air, kind of like Adolfo Mensa was, because Rick Spielman always had the GM talk, and
Yeah.
it's not like Adolfo Mensa really elaborated on anything football wise, but some of the other answers he gave were at least well thought out. He kind of would tell stories and stuff like that, and it just got so stale at the end with Spielman and his classic GM talk, beating around the bush, saying a lot, but not really saying anything at all. And then you got Mike Zimmer, who gets cranky at pretty much any question that's asked of him. Doesn't really want to elaborate on anything. So it's just going to be a complete breath of fresh air from that perspective. Obviously, having younger guys in there who probably have better media training or know how to treat the media better. Um, the fans, I guess, don't really care how the media is treated, but at the same time, these press conferences are informative and the fans like to know what these coaches and GMs think. So if they can give at least a decent answer to some of these questions, I think that's going to be well received by the fan base. But yeah, I think some of these assistant coaching hires are interesting too. They got Wes Phillips is the rumored offensive coordinator to be, Ed Donatel as defensive coordinator. Mike Pettin's going to be on the defensive staff as well, which I don't know how to feel about that, given how his track record with the Packers, the Browns, and some other teams as well. But the one that's really interesting to me is assistant quarterback coach Gerard Johnson from Texas A&M. He was most recently with the Colts organization, but was a Texas A&M quarterback. There's some potential ties to Kellen Mond there. Do you think there's any sort of foreshadowing with that sort of move right there that could potentially set up that they think they might be able to develop Kellen Mond?
That's definitely a possibility, and that could be something that gets addressed in the press conference. Who knows? I think that could certainly be a good question for somebody in the media to ask O'Connell to address, because obviously I think Mond was taken with a somewhat high pick, so I think there is still some value there that could be untapped. So maybe they want to explore that, and then they wouldn't have to take a quarterback in the first round this year, and they could use it on a different position that is also of need. But that remains to be seen. I'm curious, like you said, there's definitely a tie there, but is that just a coincidence? I don't usually believe in too many coincidences, but maybe this one could be one. I don't know. But
yeah,
I think also in this press conference too that I'm looking out for along those lines, I guess, is that I think the Vikings PR team probably coach them up to not say anything too crazy related to the quarterback position and Kirk or Kellen Mond or whoever. I think not making any commitments like that. But I think what I'd really like adding on to before, what else I'd really specifically like to hear about it now that I think about it is Super Bowl championships being mentioned, not just making the playoffs and having a chance. It's really about winning championships and putting our best foot forward to build a team that's not only going to win the division, like some people have this idea of with keeping Kirk, and if Rodgers is out, he's the best quarterback in the division, so then we can win the division. No, we got to think bigger. We got to think of winning the Super Bowl and how we're going to build this team to do that. So I think that's what I kind of want to hear too.
Yeah, that would be fantastic because it's just a whole different mindset. Because I think, I guess I'd have to go back and look at Zimmer's press conferences, but I don't know. He's like, in the offseason, he's always like, I'd love to be the guy to bring Minnesota a Super Bowl. But he never, going into a season, he never says, Super Bowl is the expectation,
No.
He's like, we think we're a playoff team. He always says we think we're a really good team.
Yeah.
So, just stuff like that. Complete breath of fresh air, like I mentioned earlier. I guess any other final thoughts here before we take off? Kind of a short video because we already kind of knew O'Connell was going to be the guy, but does this excite you anymore now that he's been a part of a Super Bowl winning staff? I mean, do you think that changes things at least a little bit going forward here? I mean, say the Bengals would have won the Super Bowl. Would you really feel any differently about O'Connell, or does this kind of raise it up even a little bit more for you? Does it make you forget about, not interviewing a Byron Leftwich, a Doug Peterson, Eric Bieniemy, stuff like that?
I think it's a cherry on top. I think it's icing on the cake, really. I think it's awesome that he's coming from a Super Bowl winning team as fresh as this is, because then you have the blueprint right in front of you. You know what it takes to win a championship, even though you're the offensive coordinator. You're about as high up as it gets besides being a head coach. And you're, like you said, he's got his hands involved in everything related offensively to that team.
Yeah.
So I think that's exactly what I want in our building. I want a guy who knows how to win in the biggest games, specifically on offense where this team's strengths lie. So I think that's probably just winning that Super Bowl makes you feel good about potentially putting together a Super Bowl winning offense or a Super Bowl caliber offense that, if coupled with at least a decent defense or an opportunistic defense, could take us over the top. Finally, win us that first Super Bowl in the 60-year history of the franchise. So I think that's really what I'm interested in here. So
Yeah, for sure. It's gonna be fun to watch. The craziness of the offseason is gonna finally get underway here, which is awesome for Vikings fans who have been without Viking football for a little while now, and the Super Bowl is over. So this is kind of the next step in the fandom process. So that's going to do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Like I mentioned earlier, please give this video a like and hit the subscribe button on this channel. Feel free to give us a follow on both Twitter and Instagram, and leave your comments below. What are your thoughts on Kevin O'Connell officially being the new head coach of the Minnesota Vikings? Where they should go from here? And I guess maybe some stuff you'd like to hear him say in the opening press conference as well. So until next time, thanks for watching.